Okay, so I got some stuff to go with the Jubilee. Picked up this old plow for it. It's a Ferguson plow. So my great-grandfather had what I think was a identical or nearly identical one. So thought that was cool. Got that for it. And then there was also this plow that the guy had that he offered to me. And so I went ahead and got it too. So it's a Dearborn model 1916 and needs some work. Pretty much anything that moves on it is seized up. Like the blade doesn't twist. That's pretty well locked down. This is pretty well locked down. So I've soaked everything in penetrating oil for probably 2 weeks now. So see if I can make any progress on it. I'm sure it's gonna take some heat. So parts that are missing is it's supposed to have a handle that comes on here and kind of loops around the other side, and it's supposed to run way up here so you can change the angle of the blade from the seat. And then, which of course all that's seized, and then this guy is seized, but you can pop that up, rotate the blade around 180 degrees and lock it in place back here, and that'll let you backfill stuff. And then the other deal is, so someone else had jacked with it. I jacked with it a little bit more just because I had to get it off the trailer, but it didn't have the right top link thing for it, and it's way too narrow for just a conventional top link. So I got to do something with that where I can just use this one and not have to have anything special for it. And yeah, somebody else's, these may not even be original at this point because these welds are really terrible, and all the other welds on this are really, really good. So just gonna start seeing if I can get stuff freed up. All right, so this is kind of cool. I'm really kind of surprised by this, but I guess it's just the difference of how things used to be made versus now. But I would have assumed that this was just a piece of pipe and another piece of pipe in here welded to this guy, and it just swiveled on that. That was what I was expecting to find in here, but I thought, you know, maybe if I pop this cover off, I can get some oil on that a little bit better and have a better chance of success at getting this apart. So, get this taken off. Look down in here. You see that? This has, presumably one on the bottom as well, massive, massive roller bearings in it. You know, just like a big, I mean, it's the same as a big giant wheel bearing for something. And that's probably what this is. This is probably the wheel bearing for some heavy duty truck. But yeah, I mean, even though this thing doesn't swivel very much, they decided to go ahead and put these massive bearings in there for longevity. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so I just had that little tab there that was bent into this cap. And then I'm just gonna use a big pair of channel locks to get it unscrewed and apart. Okay, so here's all three things that were holding it all together. So this bottom one is the nut that actually holds, you know, the blade and the bearings and everything. And then these top two things are just to lock it all down where it can't unthread itself. So now I guess I'm gonna get the tractor started or pick up the blade in one way or another and see if I can get it to drop out the bottom so I can get the bearings out of it. I went ahead and put this nut back on here loosely just so that this whole thing doesn't fall out onto the ground. And then we'll see if this thing will start. yes, I figured out that it was locked. Okay, I'm the big idiot. Thank you. All right, that was quite the effort to get that apart. What's up, Callie? So I think this is where the problem was at, was this thing here was pressed into the, or I don't know, some kind of an interference fit into the bottom of this thing. And it was a huge pain to get it out. As you can see, the roller bearings are absolutely disgusting. And if this was something that was going to rotate a lot, they would just be trashed and I'd have to replace them. But for this, they're certainly going to be fine. So how I ended up having to get this whole thing out was I took a nut here and threaded it on where neither it or that thing had exposed threads. And then I took this piece of scrap metal, which you can see how much hammering I had to do on it, that was sitting on top, and I put the nut on there so that I hopefully wouldn't be able to tear up the threads on the blade. And then I made sure the nut was far enough down that it didn't get torn up either, so they were kind of protecting each other. And then yeah, just put this on there, sledgehammer, just trying to make sure that this piece was centered in on top of that, where I wasn't getting off into the threads. Just trying to keep it in this area. And then of course I had the tractor picking up on it so that it wasn't just sitting on the ground. And eventually I got it popped out of there. So it's quite an effort. I probably had the better part of 30, maybe 45 minutes and hammering around on that thing trying to get it out of there. Hopefully it goes in easier. All right, so I think this thing was doing, the guy must have been doing some backfilling or something with this at one point, because you can see it's chipped there, and right here. And all that lines up with rollers just like that. And the cage is pretty well stressed. And there's no way I did any of that whenever I was hammering around on it, because there's nothing that was caught on this cage. So, yeah, I wonder what they hit to do that. I mean, because it chipped them up pretty good. So, if this bearing easily came off of here, I would pull it off and grease it, but it's pressed on there and I don't have anything that can take it off, so I'm just gonna have to grease it with it on here. Okay, so I don't have a socket for one of these nuts, and no place in town had one big enough. So the way I got this back in there is, instead of just doing a bunch of beating on it like that, you know, which just destroys the socket, I took this pry bar, had a little bit of an angle on it, which was helpful, and I stuck it down in one of the teeth where it was pretty much flat, or you know, right parallel to the edge of the teeth. And then I just hit on the side of the pry bar right there to make the whole thing want to walk around. All right, so I got it snugged up. You know, I don't think you really want to put any more stress on a bearing than you have to. So I got it just tightened up enough where I can't move, you know, I can't feel any play in it, but it still rotates real easy. So I just gotta get the lock nut on there. I'm gonna RTV the cap so no water can get in and put it back together. Lock nut's on, tab's bent up. Oh, that's good. That seal that's in the bottom of this thing, that was, I think, what made this so hard to get apart. One half of it started, and then I was picking up, I had it picked up with the tractor, and then the back of the blade supported with that bottle jack. And I just took a long punch and just kind of started tapping the other half of the seal in, and it pretty much went into place exactly how it was supposed to. All right, well, it'll swivel and move now. Gets a little close to the tire, but I probably would never need to use it on that extreme. So there's that. I mean, it's not really restored by any means, but it's definitely made functional again. And it should hold up better. Put a bunch of RTV around the cap so water can't get in it. And there it is flipped around, so that all works pretty good too. I'm Probably need to go clean some of the corrosion out of the holes, just because it's a little stiff. But, I mean, can't really argue with that. So, I really couldn't be happier with it. See how it does when we actually need to use it.